This is the Art of Network Engineering podcast. In this podcast, we'll explore tools, technologies, and talented people. We aim to bring you information to expand your skill sets and toolbox and share the stories of fellow network engineers.
Welcome to the Art of Network Engineering, where packets and highly caffeinated people join forces in a never-ending plight of all that is right and just to prove that no, the network is not down. I'm Tim Bertino, and I'm joined by two of the real hosts of this show, along with a very special guest. For tonight's episode, we have Mr. No Blinky Blinky in the virtual flesh himself, AJ Murray, Dan Howdy Packet Richards, and someone who I can't imagine ever gets any sleep because he always seems to be up helping other people, Tim McC. So, AJ, since you agreed to let me go through that ridiculous intro, we'll kick it off with you. How are things going, buddy?
Oh, man, you nailed it. That was a great intro. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I am on location recording from my fabulous hotel room at the Residence Inn in Indianapolis. So good times are being had here. I'm almost done my shift. I will be out of here on Wednesday. I'm super excited to get home. It's been a long 2 weeks.
And is that it of this project, or is there another leg of it somewhere?
Oh, there's another leg that starts like next Tuesday. So, yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Never ending.
But you get back for a little bit though, right? Kind of visit.
Yeah,
with the family
I'm
and
not
whatnot.
scheduled to travel for the next two locations. So 2 locations start up next week, simultaneously happening. And it's just supposed to be remote support for me, but we'll see what actually happens there.
Okay.
Is it like 2 on, 2 off type thing?
That's a long, complicated story that I probably can't get into you while we're on recorded media. I'm happy to take that offline.
I understand.
So what is there to do where you are right now? What kind of fun stuff are you doing?
Like
Besides
work-wise or
drink.
for fun?
I guess outside of work.
Outside of work, I couldn't tell you because I've been working 17-hour days since I got here.
Yeah.
There have been like a couple of nights where we actually got out early. Today was one of them. So we went to an arcade bar, which was really fun. It's called 16-Bit. There was tons of arcade games. They were all free to play. There were some pinball machines. We had some beers. It was a good time.
Very cool.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yep.
I miss those.
I'm a little jealous actually.
Well,
and it's my first experience riding around on the bird scooters. We don't have those where I live.
Yeah.
So,
we got those in Nashville, man.
Yeah. So
Love those scooters.
What's the top
I've
speed on those
shit a
things?
couple of times on those things.
Yeah.
I will have to show you guys a picture. So this particular trip has been like the entire month of May. So the first 2 weeks, another couple of guys were out here, and then about halfway through, I came out, and another guy came out. And during the first 2 weeks, one of the guys here completely ate shit on a bird scooter. Like, I'm not kidding you, dude. He was like, he was riding around, and it like apparently the app started to notify him that he was going into an area that he shouldn't or something. So he pulled out his phone to check it, and he like hit a curb and went, ass over tea kettle and completely messed up like one side of his face. Like he broke his orbital.
Oh, Jesus.
Like, apparently broke his
wow.
nose.
Jesus.
Yeah, man.
Wait, so while
Yeah.
he's on the scooter, he's pulling the phone out? And he didn't stop?
Yeah. Nope.
Okay. Well,
Just
sorry to
kept
hear
going.
that. That's
And
Yeah.
he looked like the Terminator because one of his eyes was like completely
Oh
red.
my
the
gosh.
occipital. Oh, gosh. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was bad.
Hey,
It was
that's
real bad.
that's one way to get sent home.
You know what though? Like he didn't go home. He just kept working. Like he literally showed up to work the next day to like install switches, and everyone was like,
You should see the other guy, right?
"Yeah, right."
Oh, my God.
After
Yeah,
he
that's
broke his face, and
Yeah,
he
yeah.
showed up the next day.
He showed up the next day.
Wow, that's dedication right there, man.
That
Yep.
is dedication.
Yep. He's just lucky because the guy that was with him is like, he used to be a firefighter trained EMT, so like when he went down, he was in good hands.
So
Yep.
let's kick it over to you, Dan. Did you push any big, fun, fancy ACI buttons this week?
Just a couple, I guess. Nah.
Just a couple.
Yeah.
They're all fun and fancy.
No, actually, what we did, we have successfully stretched the fabric, and we are using. Commvault has I guess you would call it a product called Live Sync, and what it does, from my understanding, a high level understanding of it, what it does is when you take snapshots of virtual machines and back those up, it will create a virtual machine at like the other location, right? And so as you do a backup, like on a Tuesday night, right, you do a backup, well then when it completes down at your second location, it will create a new VM based off of that. It'll keep it turned off, right, but it'll create a new VM, and then every time it does a backup, it'll update that VM. So basically you have a cold standby waiting. And so what we did is cool. we turned off the production server, right? This was all tests, but we turned off the main server to simulate maybe that server crashed, blue screen, something happened on it, Windows updates got it in the middle of the day, you know how that is, that kind of thing. And then we turned on the one at our offsite location, and it only lost like 4 pings between it, so with a continuous ping going. So yeah,
impressive.
That is impressive.
I was pretty happy. There was a lot of work that went into doing that, so it's pretty nice.
If you don't mind me asking, what is the physical distance between your data centers that you're stretching the fabric?
I don't know miles wise, but it's probably like an hour and a half away from each other.
Okay. Okay, so you're not cross country or anything like that?
No, they didn't want to go that far. It sucks when you have to go to the offsite location because it's a trip there and a trip back.
Yeah,
it's just far enough away.
Yeah.
All right, Tim, what's new in your world? Thanks for joining us.
Thanks. So let's see, what is new in my world? I'm actually transitioning roles at Cisco next week, actually.
Hold up.
Congratulations,
yeah,
I hope.
Thanks. No, it's a good move. At least I hope so. I'm leaving CPOC. I'm going to customer experience. I'm actually going to be a customer delivery architect. So I'll be working with customers on SD-WAN designs and implementation and stuff. So
congratulations.
That's what's new with me.
Awesome.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
Very cool. Congrats.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
Yeah,
good job.
Thank you.
All right, AJ.
Tim, what's new with you?
I think I was just gonna say I think you should take over before I lose you any subscribers.
Yeah.
No, we gotta hear what's new with Tim.
No, things are well. Home's good, work's good. I'm glad to be back here with you guys. Things are good.
Any fun projects at work going on?
Yeah, it's all fun, right?
I know
there's actually some really good things going. I'm actually been able to kind of take a breath. We've gotten some big things knocked out, internet BGP wise, kind of bringing in another entity that we've been integrating into our system for quite a while. So
like a merger?
lot of big milestones. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Gotcha. I've heard those are kind of nightmares, but is it going all right, though?
If you've got good people and good communication and can set realistic timelines, it goes well.
So you mean like good soft skills?
I do mean that.
Oh, okay.
Exactly.
Okay. I was just curious.
That's an interesting topic.
Yeah.
We should do an episode on that sometime.
Yeah. I mean, are you guys free? Like, you just want to go ahead and knock that out, or?
Oh man. Yeah, I guess I got a couple minutes.
Okay. Yeah.
Let's do that, but first, let's kick it over to Mr. No Blinky Blinky for the wins.
I need to get a travel goat so I can play the sound. I don't have the sound with me, but we got the spinning goat.
Yeah.
Oh,
hey!
there you go. What a teammate.
Perfect. All right. So I've got like 2 weeks worth of wins here, so please bear with me. Alex passed the CCNA. Congratulations, Alex. All
nice.
right.
Excellent, Alex.
Congrats.
Service Type Framed has passed the Microsoft AZ 900, so that's the Azure Fundamentals exam, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Very nice.
Yeah, cool. Very cool. Congratulations.
Nargarat, I'm guessing, got a promotion to a network security engineer position, so congratulations, Nargarat.
Wow.
In the past couple of
Nice.
weeks, the A1 podcast, we have surpassed 70,000 downloads.
All
Amazing.
right.
Very cool.
Thank
get on
you
the
so
train.
much, everybody out there listening, downloading. Couldn't do it without you.
That is awesome.
Command Steve 22 has accepted an offer for another network security engineer position. So congratulations, Command Steve. Andre, our tech sergeant in the Air Force, passed his GCIA certification. So congratulations, Andre.
That one was really cool for me because we all kind of got to see that, the whole preparation to it, everything he was doing, all his notes he was building, and the help he was getting from other people. So that was really cool to kind of see that from start to finish. So awesome, Andre.
Very cool.
Yep.
Good job.
I don't want to brag, but I'm on the list here this week, fellas. Last weekend, I replaced two 6509s with two 9606s. I had 0 issues, and that included a 23,000 lines worth of ACL.
Oh my gosh.
I want to talk about that for a second because when you brought that up, you kind of made it sound like that it was somewhat brought to you last minute that it was going to have to be done. And it was just kind of like here, we got to get this done. You need to do it by tomorrow. Was that true, or
No,
did you have a little more lead time?
Okay, so with the project that we're doing, we're replacing a ton of switches. So it's like, I don't know, 300-400 switches. It's at a main site facility here, and then there's a bunch of like satellite surrounding offices. So we're doing all the access layer stuff. At the main site, the main campus, we're replacing the data center stuff with Nexus, and we're replacing the cores. Well, the cores are already replaced. I arrived on Thursday before last, and one engineer had kind of started the bone work, the framework of the core upgrade, but he was too busy supporting our installation team, a subcontractor of ours, that had some junior installers, we'll say. And so, unfortunately, he didn't get enough of a chance to dedicate his time to fully preparing the core configuration. So I spent most of Friday doing a port map, preparing and finishing. He unfortunately did not get all that started. So I wrote the config, did the port map of all the old ports to the new ports, did the software upgrade on the 9606s, configured stack-wise, put everything on there except for that 23,000 line beast of ACLs. I did that the following morning just before deployment to make sure that I captured the latest and greatest updates from it. And then we went ahead and did the core swap. There was a ton of port channels going out to all of their switch closets. So before I left on Saturday, I made sure at least one leg in each port channel was working. We had to replace a lot of fiber because they have a lot of 10 gig, and the 10 gig on the 6500 was using some much older SFP. Obviously, it was using SC to LCs, or it was SC to ST at the patch panel. So we had to change it from to ST to LC. And so we had to roll a lot of fibers to make it all work.
Yeah.
And so before we left on Saturday, we made sure at least one leg of all the port channels was working, and then we came back on Sunday and kind of finished up, finessed the config, and made sure everything was working. So it was a not so insignificant replacement. And Monday morning we had no issues, no complaints, and pretty happy with that.
That's incredible.
You are a wizard.
Yeah. You're a wizardary.
I love
awesome.
those 9606s, man. Those are my favorite.
Oh, I was gonna say those 9600s are great switches.
Yeah.
They really stumbled with the 6800s, but they really redeemed themselves with the Cat 9Ks. I love those switches.
Yeah. So we've been doing 9600s, 9500s, and the 9300s, and like the top end 9300s with the 5 gig PoE.
Oh yeah,
Yep.
I love those switches.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the challenge with the 23,000 line ACL is they had to wait until an upgrade came out. I think it's like some flavor of 17.4, so you can manually adjust the TCAM. So when you're not using like TCAM for like QoS or something, you can allocate it to do the ACL processing. Otherwise, it just cripples the box.
So was that an SDM template? Did they not have? I haven't followed it. Was that an SDM template? Did they not have that available on the 9K or?
Yeah, there are
Yeah.
SDM templates, but there wasn't one that suited the extra allocation for ACL processing. So you have to do
23,000 lines. Yeah, that's a hell of a lot of TCAM to program. Yeah. Gotcha.
How did you? What did you use to make sure that all those were there? Like when you put them into the new one, did you just like count lines, or did you use like a beyond compare?
I just copied and pasted 1,000 lines.
I believe you.
I was gonna ask what the migration process was.
Yeah.
How long did that
take? There's a bunch of pre-validation commands that we run. We want to see the routing table, routing relationships and so forth. So I do a show run. I copy it I copy the ACL out of the show run into its own text document, upload that via USB to the 9606, copy ACL.text to running, and then I do a show run, and then I compare in Visual Studio Code, I compare the two, and it was like line for line exact. I was like, okay.
A lot of trust there, right?
Yep. It worked though. It worked.
That's awesome.
That's how you gotta do it with those really big ACLs.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I love that. Copy text file to run. Oh man.
Yeah, it's great. Nice. It's merging. You merge it with the running config. Yeah. One time I had to do a CPOC with like 4,000 VLAN interfaces. I used the Python script to create them. And then, of course, obviously I didn't copy and paste that in, right? I did the same thing, copy to a text file, and then copy to the run config. It's great. I love it.
Where did you learn that trick at? Because I've never heard of doing that before. Now, I've never copied thousands and thousands of ACL lines either, so...
Neither have I.
You know what? I actually saw David. He wrote a blog article for us, and he actually talked about doing that, how you do the merge. Like a lot of people, you didn't know that you could do that. You just copy a text file. You don't have to copy it off the USB. You can copy it to Flash if you want to, or you can just do it directly from the USB. But you just copy text file. I think text file for the encoding works best. If you do any other type of file, sometimes the encoding can screw up what gets imported in.
So just a straight up TXT file. Okay.
Yep.
I'm trying to remember if there was a doc or something. I've known it for years, and I don't remember where I learned it either. It's been that long. I think there's a doc somewhere. It's not, or it's some tribal knowledge stuff I picked up along the way, maybe. But no, it's great.
So you can USB it, FTP it, doesn't matter. You just get the file onto the box, and then you copy file to running.
Mm-hmm.
What was the gear that you were doing a CPOC of that had 4,000 or thousands of SVIs?
It was a 9500 actually.
Oh,
so
okay.
It was a 9500, and it was a scale test on how many OSPF routes we could inject. It was not OSPF. This was a BGP test. We did both, but this particular one was for BGP. Yeah, so it was just a scale test. You do a lot of scale testing in CPOC, and so that means you have to create huge amounts of everything. And so, like I said, I wrote a Python script to spit out 4,000 SVIs. In that respect, but it's a great trick. You guys know about the config archive revert stuff too, right? Where you can kind of get the commit config thing. You guys know that one? That was another one. Nobody seems to know.
I think that was actually so when I got the CCNA for the second time in 2018, I think that was actually on the topics, on the exam topics. Was that? So I do remember that.
Can you briefly just go over that real quick? What does that do?
Yeah, so you turn on config archive. So I think it's just archive or something on the CLI. And what it does is it lets you save your candidate config, if you will. It creates the base thing it does is let you save, like archive the config, but it also turns on the feature I was talking about is it turns on the ability to do a revert timer. So you can do like config timer, you can do like config terminal revert, 10 or 5 or how many minutes you want it to wait. And if you have archive on, if you say, fat finger an IP address or shut down interface, you lose the box, it automatically rolls back the config and without having to reboot. So you don't have to do reload in 5 or any of that. Yeah, that's a good one. I'll find the link to you. I'll find the link for you guys for those of you who didn't already know it.
The way I've done that is do the because there's like a way that you can do like a restart or reboot within a certain amount of time.
Yeah, reload in 5.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
it. Yeah,
that-
and so I've done that in the past, just in case if I jack
yeah, a lot of
something
people
up.
have.
Yeah. I like the
But this
archive
way, you
one,
don't
though.
have to reboot the box. It just rolls back the config to the last good config. If you
Yeah.
don't commit, basically, because you lost the box,
Mhm.
it'll roll back to the last before you went into config mode. It rolls back to that config.
I got you.
Okay.
Sounds
Nice.
good.
That's cool. I knew about archive, but I didn't know about that part of archive. That's really cool.
Oh yeah, I'll find the link for you guys. I'll send it to you, and you can like put it on with the show notes or whatever if anybody's
Perfect.
interested.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's a great little thing. Save you a lot of time on the waiting for a reload at like 2 in the morning.
Yeah.
So
Well, speaking of show,
yeah.
I digress a little because we have more wins to go through.
Okay, all right, yeah, let's.
All right,
let's
so
hear 'em.
Oh, I'm sorry.
no, this is great. This is great. We'll definitely add that stuff to the show notes. So Jerv, as they go by in the Discord, has the Security Plus. Jonathan, congratulations, Jonathan graduated with his BS in electrical engineering. That's Bachelor of Science, not the other BS.
Wow.
Andy, not our Andy, another Andy, passed his probation at work. At least we presume it's probation at work, not the other probation. our buddy Robin Canella completed his ITIL version 4. Our very own Dan, Howdy Packet, finished an ACI multi-site deployment in the last couple of weeks. Congratulations, Dan.
Yep.
And last but not least, Cisco Boy 906 reported that they passed their CCNA just today. Congratulations, Cisco Boy.
There we go.
That is awesome.
Lots of winning.
Yeah, didn't he get like a? Did he say he got like a 908 or something like that on it?
Yeah,
pretty
it was like
good
a
score.
918 or something.
Yeah.
All right, wins all around.
Nice.
Awesome.
We still got to name the GOAT. We got the poll going. I got to go back and check for some good answers.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah. We'll finish that up after I
I was
get
gonna
back
ask if
from the
that
trip.
is finished.
All right. So tonight, Tim, what are we talking about?
Tonight we are talking about soft skills, which I cringe a little bit when I say that. I don't know about you guys, but I'm not a fan of that term at all. And I'm not 100% sure why. I think part of it is just the way it sounds makes it not sound as important as the what I'll call hard technical skills that you can have. And what I think the issue there is that us as network engineers, as IT professionals, we just get it pushed into us that we got to be the smartest people in the room. We got to know everything from a technical perspective. But I think sometimes it's easy to neglect the quote soft skills. And I think the reason why I don't like that is because you hear soft, you think maybe it's not as important, which I think it's just the opposite. I think you have to be able to effectively communicate, just be an all-around nice person, and handle yourself well in adverse situations. So what I kind of wanted to talk about first is what your guys' opinion of soft skills are. And it was no accident that we brought in Tim because he wrote a really good article a while back giving advice for network engineers. And a lot of that is around what I'll call these soft skills. So Tim, do you want to kick it off and give your kind of definition of what soft skills are?
Yeah, sure. I think the reason a lot of us cringe when we say the word soft skills is that there's a lot of baggage, I think, that we've all, associated with the word, right? It's a very HR-ish kind of term, or like, you know what I mean? And tell me if you think I'm wrong, right? But I feel like the term soft skills carries a lot of baggage with it. That's not like pleasant. I guess maybe more and more clinically, I guess the new term du jour or darling is emotional intelligence. You guys hearing that one a lot?
Yep.
Versus IQ. You guys are hearing that one, right? So that's like
I
the term du jour.
Okay.
Oh, okay. They've been kicking that one around within Cisco for a while. But like emotional I don't know if it's emotional quotient or whatever, but it's like EQ versus IQ type of thing. But yeah, I mean, it all boils down to the same thing, which is your ability to communicate, to collaborate, to kind of deal with other people in a way that is professional and also gets the job done, whatever that job that needs to be done, right? So I think that's the basics of soft skills is basically everything that has to do with other people, or at least with communicating or just dealing with other people in the workplace. I guess really outside the workplace too, but I guess that's where I'd take a first stab at the definition.
So how do you teach, or how do you learn soft skills, and is that even possible?
How do you teach soft skills? So this is interesting, right? This is an interesting question, and I'm curious to see what you guys think as well. But what I find is, and we covered this a little bit in my when I was here doing the talk about the technical interviews. But the soft skills thing is, sorry, something just randomly popped up on my screen I wasn't expecting. But the soft skills thing is kind of important, right? So how do you teach someone soft skills? When we're talking about like technical interviews, we're saying we're doing interviews of a technical nature to kind of decide, okay, can this person do the job technically? But a lot of times it seems like what we're more interested in is the culture fit, right? And, correct me if I'm wrong for those of you guys who've sat on interviews, culture fit is like something that's really hard to teach someone versus, say, something technical. Like we can teach you how OSPF works, right? But it's kind of hard to teach you how to have basic communication skills. So when you say, how do you teach someone that? I'm not 100% sure. Like, we have these HR things within Cisco, these, what do they call it? Cisco Mindset is what they call it. And they're like little workshops over the weeks where you work with, some, and it's like a class, right? Like a workshop class. It's not one-on-one, but they try to teach you things like meditation or like how to, collaboration, workplace communication. And so I'm not saying it's impossible to teach someone soft skills, but it definitely is difficult, because if you think about it, you're kind of like fighting against, like if somebody doesn't have soft skills, right? You say somebody is very awkward or is hard at communicating, like how do you teach them? Because teaching them is communicating. So it's a little bit
quit
putting
being
the
awkward, man.
Cart before the horse, right? So what do you guys think?
Yeah, no, so for me, I feel like in my experience so far, the best way that I've learned how to improve my soft skills are just by jumping in and doing things, like getting experience, basically. Like, sometimes I try to be funny and I answer an email the wrong way, and it's like, you know what, looking back on that probably wasn't a good idea. So the next time that I'm like, hey, I want to be snarky or something like that, I'm like, you know what? Remember how I felt that last time? I probably shouldn't put that in there. Go ahead and backspace that out, and and don't do that kind of thing. Or like jumping on the podcast here, like we were joking offline before we jumped on here that I'm not real quick on my feet about coming up with some kind of idea or how to respond to something just right away. Well, being on this podcast has helped me with that, right? Like, I still don't think I'm the greatest at it, or I'm nowhere near good, but forcing myself to be in this situation has helped me, develop that a little bit more, I guess.
Yeah, thinking on your feet, being able to answer questions quickly, somewhat accurately, or to the best of your ability, or whatever. Yeah,
right.
I will say, Dan, I have noticed an improvement, or at least a change, right, since we first started this podcast and to now, and not just you, but particularly you. When I listen to the conversations from the early days versus today, there's a remarkable difference for all of us, and I think that's a combination of doing this a bunch of times, getting to know each other better, and so on and so forth. It's improving and working those soft skills to be able to pull off what we're doing. So, yeah.
Well, appreciate that.
I'm gonna second that, because as what I've really enjoyed as the show has gone on is that episode by episode we hear a little bit more and a little bit more from Dan. Dan is Dan's talk. You're communicating, Dan. You're practicing your soft skills.
But yeah, when I first started on here, I was very like super quiet, and like my heart was always pumping because I was like, what if I say something dumb, and just exactly what you guys are saying. Like, as I've done it more, I feel more comfortable when we hit that record button. So I think the same thing kind of translates over into your soft skills, right? Like you just got to get out there and start working on stuff. And I mean, well, I think step one is to realize, like, hey, if you're an awkward person, like, you kind of have to realize that, right? Like,
yeah.
So
I will say that there was a number of times in the beginning where, like, we would record and you'd be kind of quiet, and then as soon as we stopped recording, you're like, "Oh, hey, by the way," and you tell this like amazing story. You're like, "Dan, do that on the podcast, man."
Yeah, I apologize. I was learning.
Much better now.
One thing I did want to ask you, Dan, was do you think it's less difficult or more difficult from a communication and respect standpoint working in a smaller environment, a smaller team?
I think, I don't know, because I guess I don't really know how to compare it to a larger team, right? But I feel like we're more, I would assume, personable, maybe, because we sit right next to each other all day long, kind of thing. And then if you're communicating to someone else who's like maybe on the development team or something like that, I mean, I could, within 20 steps, I could probably get to their desk, kind of thing. So I feel like, yeah, you're not gonna say something like you would on the internet, right? Like, yeah, there's gonna be some weight to that, whatever you say.
Right. I agree. It's that small town concept, I think, in that you are around these people in a close proximity every day. You want to maintain a healthy relationship.
Right.
So, yeah. And I'm in the same boat. I've been in smaller teams my entire career so far. So I think I'd like to hear from Tim and AJ a little bit more, as you guys have worked in larger teams, larger environments. What's that like?
Yeah.
I mean, for me, soft skills is second to none. Like, I work in a very customer-focused position right now, and if I can't, communicate to the customer either what the issue is, what the goal of the project is, or, work with them and pull out the information I need in order to be successful in the project, then I'm just not going to be successful. I've held other positions as an IT manager, so communicating the technical goals of the project and linking those to the business needs, or, doing the reverse, right? Like, if the business needs something, then how do we translate that to the technical answer to the solution or whatever. And so the soft skills are really, you got to have them. If you don't have them, you're just, I'm not saying you're not going to be successful. You're just not going to be as successful if you don't have those technical skills. And now as a team lead, there's a lot more of that going on, right? Like, so I have an engineer great engineer, just not very confident in their abilities. And he feels bad because if he's doing a project, he feels like it's going to take like twice as long, 3 times as long for him to accomplish it versus having me or another senior engineer do it. It's just like, well, if we're doing it all the time, then you're never going to become, a senior engineer if you don't get that experience. You just got to be confident in what you know. If you have questions, ask. Don't just go with it if you're not sure, because nobody wants to see anybody fail. And we'll never let anybody, we'll never let like a teammate fall, kind of thing. But just having the right soft skills to be confident in your knowledge, ask questions when appropriate, and execute after that.
That's helpful, because I in the past, thinking about where if I was to change jobs or something like that, like I felt basically like that. I was like, what if I am the slowdown coming into a new team, or whatever the case may be. So that's nice to hear that. What about you, Tim?
I've worked in a small enterprise, and by small enterprise, I don't mean that the enterprise itself was small. I guess it'd be more accurate to say that it was a very small team. So there were 3 engineers and a network manager, and the manager was a network engineer that was promoted to manager, and we were covering a global network. But it was, of course, very small, right? That was a very extremely small team. And we sat, right next to the sysadmins, and there were like 3 or 4 of them. So it was everything was very tightly knit. But I think company culture and like location culture or whatever, like just the culture of the area you're in or the culture of the company that you're in, plays a large part of that whole thing as well. Like the soft, not just the quote unquote soft skills, but just like how teams interact, how people interact generally, I guess. And I think you see it more on small teams, because it's a smaller team, everything's much more impactful, versus somewhere like Cisco, where, I talk to people all the time internally that I might never speak to again, or I might see, every Tuesday. Even people on my team before COVID happened, had people on my team that I never saw in real life.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a different, in that respect, it was the way you communicate also feeds a lot, into the culture of it, the company culture, and the way you communicate. So there you communicate more with, say, chat or WebEx Teams in our case, right? And so the way you communicate is also part of how your soft skills show up, right? So if you sit right next to somebody and you guys are both engineers and you talk, that's a different form of communication than, say, me and a teammate who is across the country and we're chatting on WebEx Team or doing a WebEx or something like that, right? Like, so I think that figures into it. So I guess that's what I would say as far as the difference. I would say it relies more on how you interact with your team, and part of that is geographical in some way, and some of that is culture, company culture, and location culture.
Okay.
Yeah, I do think that communicating often is important, and I think it can easily come off as, maybe you think you're talking too much, which, you can obviously say too much sometimes, but I think that if you're communicating to your team, especially in a dispersed environment, just giving updates on what you're doing, and especially if things can impact the team, I think is important. An example is we recently had a maintenance window, and we just by chance, we like to let the operations center know when we're doing things, just in case, bad things happen and they start getting a lot of phone calls. So we just, I don't even think it was a phone call. I think we just sent an instant message to someone that was working on the operations center the night we were doing our maintenance, just saying, hey, we've got this change going on. We're getting started. We ended up getting an email from like the manager or director over the operations center the next day saying that whoever was working that night absolutely loved that. They loved being talked to. I think it's that whole mentality of do something with people instead of to them. I think they respond to that a lot better. So I just think, communicating effectively and communicating often, I think is a really important soft skill to have.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Absolutely.
nice. Letting all the teams that might have to suffer from any mishaps, right? Let them know.
So as much as I don't want to talk about this, I want to shift gears a little bit from communication and respect and all that good stuff to handling yourself in an adverse situation. So you're sitting there at your desk, you're working along, and all of a sudden you can't access anything in the data center anymore. And all of a sudden, pre-COVID, you kind of look around and people start poking their heads up over the cubes because they can't get to anything either. And they're looking at you because you're the network guy. And then all of a sudden your boss comes over and says, hey, we got to get on this conference bridge. Do you guys have any tips around that? So you get on that conference bridge, everybody's kind of virtually looking over your shoulder. How do you handle those kind of situations?
So for me personally, when that did happen to me, I skipped the conference bridge and I ran to the data center with my cable, my console cable, and I fixed what I broke.
But you're a hero for fixing it so quickly.
Yeah, right. They did thank me later, and I was like, well, I screwed it up, so.
They don't need to know that. You fixed it. That's all that counts.
Yeah.
So for me, I used to do emergency services work, and primarily as a radio operator. And one of the best pieces of advice that I ever got from another radio operator was to remain calm, because the second that you get elevated, that you get excited, even if it's just in your voice, that kind of rubs off, and other people can get excited or alert or whatever the case may be. So getting stressed out or worried or elevating yourself in some way during an emergency situation, even if it's just like a network down kind of situation, that will cloud your judgment, create some poor choices, and it just doesn't help the situation. So just breathing and thinking about your training, thinking about what go through your verification commands, look for what you want to see. If you don't see something that you would normally see, kind of pick that stuff out. Just remain calm is kind of the biggest takeaway there.
Yeah, and
just breathe.
I'll add to that that I think if you are asked to be on a call, I think you need to find a balance, because you're on that call, so you feel like you need to be communicating, but you're also you're the technical person, so you're trying to fix the issue. So
Right.
I think you really need to find that balance, in that us as technical people will get in our own heads and we'll say, I got to be heads down. I got to figure out what's going on. Nobody bother me. But there are management styles and culture where they want to get, when those kind of things happen, they want to get all the smart people on the call. They want to get them talking to each other. So what I think is really important, and what middle and upper level management like to see, is they want you to be troubleshooting and then communicating as you troubleshoot, giving updates often, because the last thing management wants to hear when they get on a conference bridge for a network down issue is silence. They want to know what's going on, because they've got the business coming after them trying to figure out what's going on. And I think that really diffuses the situation to, even if it's just you communicating what you're doing, if you're just kind of talking out loud, as long as you're coherent, not every other word's a curse word. I think if you just kind of walk through what you're doing, and especially if you've got teammates on the phone that you're bouncing things off of, or teammates in adjacent teams, sysadmins, what have you, just communicate, because you don't know if something that you may say might be a trigger word to somebody else that says, oh, I need to go check this. So it's all back to communication.
Yeah. So how would you handle that then? Would you jump on that bridge, or how do you have that fine line? Like how do you handle that situation?
In my experience, that decision is handled for you,
Okay.
where you're told whether or not you're going to be on that call. But I mean, even if you aren't, even if you're given that option, collaboration is a beautiful thing. Can be a beautiful thing if people are really working together, not pointing fingers. I think that's a snippet from Tim's advice article.
Yeah.
And just working together and talking and still being able to troubleshoot. I think it's important and effective.
Yeah. So one thing too, since like the whole COVID thing, we've been using, like Microsoft Teams a lot, right? And so when things have been happening, like an outage or some kind of problem comes up, right? One thing that I've noticed an increase at my location is people jumping in on like a big group conversation on those team chats, right? And that's actually, I think that's helpful, right? Because then you don't have the audio of people talking and yada yada yada. Oh, and also a good little tip is to go ahead and mute that, so while you're digging into something, you don't constantly hear bloop bloop bloop, all the little notifications coming up. But when you find something, then you can go straight to your chat, type it in there, like, hey, I found this right here, I'm looking, I'm still digging, right? And I feel like that's a pretty good one. But
yeah, collaboration, definitely.
Yeah, I definitely feel like I devoted several of my 10 rules to more or less what to do when shit hits the fan. And the one you mentioned, right? When there's a fire, be the firefighter, don't be the police. But because I worked at a place that was extremely punitive, the leadership was very punitive with critical incidents. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you may or may not have ever, we know Dan's only worked one place, so we don't have to worry about Dan, but for everybody else, if you've ever worked at a place where when there is a critical incident, the leadership is more interested in figuring out who is responsible than how, not to let it happen again, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
So that tends to engender a culture where where we're not working together to fix the problem, we're working together to clear our names. So that's why I said, like, be the firefighter, not the police, or not the suspect, right? Trying to clear yourself. And what you said about collaboration is exactly true. Whether you do it in a chat, whether you do it on a bridge. And by the way, when you get on the bridge and everybody's yelling at you for updates every 5 seconds, you're just trying to you're like, I literally have no update. I'm sitting here watching the CLI fly by. What I'll do in that situation is I'll say exactly what I'm working on. Like, I am right now logging into this router. I'm looking for this output. I'll advise, I expect this to take 3 minutes. I'll be back and, I'll advise as soon as I have that result or within 3 minutes. Like as long as you set expectations on this kind of calls about when you will communicate, you can actually still go heads down, but you have to be communicating the expectation of when you will be communicating, if you will.
That's a good tip. I didn't really think about that, but yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. In when you get management involved on those calls, I think it's much easier to communicate expectations in chunks of time than even more so than explaining exactly what the issue is and exactly what your
especially when you don't know what it is.
Yeah, exactly. But it's easy, I think, for them to be able to communicate to the business, hey, this is high level what we're working on, and we'll have an update in X amount of minutes. I think is huge, and it's much more important than just being silent.
Yeah, being proactive is a lot better than being reactive. I mean, you'll if you're new to a team, it's probably harder. But once you've been in a company or on a team for a while, you'll get a feel for like, okay, this person is going to be asking for an update on this, and so just even if it seems nonsensical to you, to just kind of shout that stuff out on the bridge, and then like Tim said, setting the expectation. Well, I have to go dig into this. I need to be heads down for 5 minutes. I'll come back as soon as I have the answer or within the next 5 minutes or so, and give yourself the space. Like if people understand like, hey, he's got to step away to go dig into the issue, let's let him do that. And then he'll come back with, some result.
Yeah. Yeah. And like it or not, you as the technical person troubleshooting the issue, especially if you're on one of those big conference bridges, your demeanor is going to set the tone for how that troubleshoot's going to go.
Yeah.
And if you're remaining calm, if you're remaining calm and you're giving updates, once that gets resolved, you're going to look much more like the hero than the goat, in my opinion.
I got you.
Well, oh, sorry. Hang on.
That goat, not
the word. This is like, it's like Pee-wee's Playhouse whenever we say the magic word.
That's right. He said the magic
word. Yeah, and I think also look at it from a perspective of a manager or whoever's over this project or whatever the system might be. If you are coming back and you're saying, hey, I got you something, I'll have you something in like 5 minutes, right? And you deliver on that, then I see that benefiting you in the sense of, hey, management knows what to expect of you. So like if you're delivering your updates and, hey, we see the problem now, we should have it fixed in like 15 minutes or something like that, and then you deliver that. I think that just makes you look better all around right there. Like everybody understands where the cadence is, right?
And you're building trust as well.
Is it just me, or does the clock always tick faster, like while you're trying to do something?
Oh yeah, for sure. It definitely does.
Like I just noticed that. Like whenever I want to give an estimate, I do some quick math in my head because I will tell the person that it's going to take me double the time than I think it's going to, because it always takes me at least 1.5 times longer than I think it's going to.
Yep.
So I give myself a little bit of a buffer there to meet my own deadlines.
Always give yourself a buffer.
That's
what I always do.
It's crazy. Like when you're under the gun with something, like you'll be working away and you're like, oh, it's already been an hour? What?
Yeah. So when I do our maintenance windows, if I know that there's going to be like 5 minutes of downtime, I always put like an hour on there just so that I get that I got a buffer on there just in case,
absolutely true.
Something goes sideways.
The thing of that is, Dan, is that if you're communicating that to the business or to the help desk, the operations center, they're not in your head. They don't have your skill set. They don't know that it should take only 5 minutes. So if you tell them an hour and it ends up, you think it's 5 minutes and ends up taking a half an hour, there's no harm done.
Right.
As long as
you still come out ahead,
communicated the expectation and met it.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not going to know.
So yeah, I always give myself plenty of cushion because I've learned over the years, if something's gonna happen, it's gonna happen. Like, just go ahead.
It'll be very quick. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, that's true. No, absolutely. It's all about expectation, right? We talk about soft skills, and really, what we're talking about at a very basic level at a professional level between, as part of that communication is communicating our expectations to ourselves, to each other, to the business. Just what can we expect from other people at our workplace? And I feel that's a big part of soft skills in general.
Right.
So there's two more things that I want to cover. The first one is, it's kind of the first set of big words on your article, Tim, and it's credibility is the most important thing you possess. Can you dive into that?
Yeah, absolutely. So here's the thing. Obviously the words speak for themselves on that, right? But what I mean is that, so a lot of people are like, you're like, okay, well, name the one thing that, is most important. Is it ambition? Is it knowing everything? Is it your ability to connect with other people? Like those things, you can learn something. You can get more connections. You can get more recognition. You can get more fame. All those things are a byproduct, basically. But your credibility, meaning, the trust that people extend to you and your ability to deliver on that trust. And I don't mean like, this outage thing we're talking about. I just mean in general. That's a thing that is kind of a one-use item, right? Like if you lie, like let's say, Dan, you said before you caused an outage and you ran to the data center to fix it. Well, if you had instead elected to, log out and go home or something and like pretended that wasn't you, obviously at some point somebody's going to figure out that happened, or somebody's going to know that happened, and your credibility shot, right? Like you can't, even if you don't get fired, even if you keep working there, right? Nobody's going to trust you because you lied about it, right? Like your credibility at its basic core, anywhere you go, anything you do within this industry or any industry, right? Your credibility is like the one. It's almost like, I don't mean crass, but it's almost like your virginity, right? Like it's like it's a one use item,
right?
And once you've lost it, it's gone. And this industry is too small to waste
Definitely.
your credibility
Right.
on anything, really. I can't think of a single thing that I would wait. Every time I've ever caused an outage, and I have it, of course, right? I've caused many, I'm sure, like everybody else. The one thing that I made sure always happened was that I owned it. No matter how, and if you get fired, if it's so bad that you get fired, you know what? You got fired, right? But if you try to hide it, what's that?
You may have deserved it if you got fired.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, like if you get fired, if you whatever it is, right? Like you still got to own it because you're gonna get found out. It's like your parents used to say, right? Like if you lie, you're only gonna make it worse. Well, I mean, we know this is true, right? Because I know. I've known people in the past that they've broken crap and they've lied about it, and everybody knew they were lying about it, and like so you can never, they just blew it, right? Like they had no. Yeah. If you break something, you have the opportunity to grow from that and to move on and whatever. If you lie about it, and everybody knows you lied about it, there's no coming back from that. So that's what I mean when I talk about credibility being your like one and only most important asset to keep.
And see, that right there is the whole reason why I stayed and didn't go home, though.
Yeah.
All of these systems have logs. You usually can't say you did one thing if you actually did something else. And point in case, I was on call one weekend and somebody else was doing updates to some servers, and they shut down a server rather than restart the server. And then they called me and they're like, I don't know what happened. I did some updates and restarted it, and now it won't come back. And so I'm like, okay, I'll go in and check it out. Server's off, power back on, boots up fine, check the logs, they shut it down. And it's just like, dude, you're killing me.
Yep.
Yeah, that should be another soft skill. Don't mess with the on-call guy.
Yeah.
Or at least, be ready to send them some form of buy them a beer or something if you end up having to make them go into the office. If I make somebody go into the office and it's my mistake and I for some reason can't go in the office and solve my own problem, then yeah, I definitely make sure to take care of that person in some way that the next time I can, right?
Yeah. Send them a coffee or a gift card or something like that for some coffee.
Yeah, whatever. Buy him a beer, like him or her a beer, whoever that is, right? Happens less now at Cisco, knock on wood, right? But because that doesn't really happen. But yeah, definitely when I was an enterprise engineer.
So the last thing I wanted to touch on is kind of around the concept of mentorship. So if you're lucky enough to be a part of a team, whether it be large or small, one of the benefits is that you can lean on people. And, when you join a team, when you're brand new, it can be scary. You may not be the most seasoned engineer. Maybe you are, but it's a new environment. So I kind of want to direct this at AJ, because AJ, you've been in management positions, leadership positions, and highly technical positions. At what point do you decide you're going to kind of mentor somebody or help somebody out, or are you supposed to wait for management to tell you, hey, you need to go in there and help this person? What's your mindset?
So I think everyone's answer to this question might be a little bit different, but for me personally, I just like to help people. And so I don't have to be your manager to help you. You don't have to be a peer, a direct peer for me to help you. If I see that, if I have knowledge that I feel like you should know, then I'm going to take the time to share that with you, because that's only going to help both of us, right? So I have worked as a manager and mentored people. There was a point where I have ever mentored our buddy Taylor. I gave him some tips on some soft skills kind of stuff in the past when he was working for me as an intern. Now he gives me tips because he's way smarter than I am on most things. I have, like I was talking about earlier, I have a junior engineer that works for me, and I spend time mentoring him, every once in a while, just because I want to see people be successful. I want to see people grow, kind of thing. So, mentoring does not come with any sort of territory. So, like I said, if you see somebody that could use the knowledge, then give them that knowledge. It's only going to help you both grow.
Yeah, I'll kick that to you, Dan, because I think over the last couple of years, you guys have actually had some newer people come in. How have you handled that?
So I think definitely what AJ said, just wanting to help other people, but I also look at it as from I guess more business mindset. I don't know, but you want people on your team that aren't going to run into a bunch of issues, right? You want your team to grow. You want your team to be successful, right? You don't want someone going in there and then jacking up your core switches, and then guess what? Now I got to go in too because I've got to fix whatever they broke. You want some of that as well, right? Like, because a well-rounded team is always going to do better. They're going to have the more successful. They're the ones that are going to have the 23,000 ACL lines, and nothing happened on Monday morning, that kind of thing. So
that's a good point.
So I think there's some of that in there too, right? Because I think some people might, kind of going back to what Tim said about pointing fingers and stuff like that. Like let's say on my team, if one of my guys, if they screwed something up and it broke it, and I was just like, you know what, they broke it. Guess what? They're gonna have to fix it. That's not a team effort, right? And so I want to make sure that they don't walk into something that especially if I saw it coming, right? Like, oh, that's gonna screw it up right there. I'm gonna stop and be like, hey, look, I don't think that's the way to do this, right? Because of this and this and this, whatever facts I might have, kind of thing. So I don't know. I'm kind of rambling now, but I think it makes a better team, right? If you are mentoring somebody on your team, I feel like that only ups your team as a whole.
Well, and I like one thing that you brought up there, and it was something that I don't necessarily think about when I'm working with the team and trying to help them out. I'm thinking it solely from the aspect of just trying to help somebody and help us as a team. But you brought up the aspect of think about it business minded, right?
Right.
What's IT there for? They're there to support the business. So taking that to that next level, I really like that. And that if I help them, they're going to be able to better serve the business. The business is better off altogether. I really like that. That was cool. So I did say that was the last thing, but I do want to put Tim on the spot one more time.
Put me on the spot.
Yeah.
Tim on the spot.
And we are we're kind of molding this episode and our interview episode together. So with the amount of interviews that you've done, both technical and probably non-technical, if you have two applicants that come in for interviews and one is incredibly technical, incredibly smart, but a little rough around the edges, and you've got another person that comes in that isn't as senior, they could still do the job, they can still learn, they have the will to learn, but they're nice, they can communicate well, they're respectful. Which one do you lean toward?
I mean, obviously, there's a lot of factors there, right? I couldn't easily say, oh, well, I take this over this, right? It depends on how rough around the edges. When I'm thinking about interviews or, like what would I want to work on a team with this person, I think one thing I go to, there's a few things I look for. One is the ability to communicate. Two is obviously the drive to learn is extremely important, right? If they come in with every skill known in the book, I mean, that's cool, right? Like, I mean, obviously it's great for everybody if they can just sit down and immediately start, doing work, obviously. So that's helpful too. But if it was, say you have this dichotomy where you have one person who is technically good, but awkward or difficult to communicate or something like that. And then you have someone who is not as technically savvy, but is a great communicator and is eager to learn and can be taught and will just in generally work better in a team setting. I think I would take the person who would work better in the team every time, because I can teach someone how to be technical. It's much harder to teach someone how to be social and how to have good communication skills because of kind of what we touched on a little bit earlier, right? Where it's hard to teach someone who can't communicate how to communicate, right? And I'm personally not probably a great teacher of that sort of thing. I don't know. I've never been good at that. I don't know. I'm not like I've never seen myself as any kind of a mentor anyway, because I struggle with imposter syndrome, so it's really hard for me to decide to be anyone's mentor. But at the same time, it's like, again, if I have to teach somebody one thing or the other, I think it would be a lot easier to teach them the technical stuff than it would be to teach them, say, how to communicate and how to be a member of a team.
And I think that that's actually a really good point to go back to your original statement, Tim, is you were talking about you don't like the term soft skills, right? Because it makes it seem like less. And then you have an answer like that right there where, hey, if this person's more of a teammate, more of a good communicator and stuff, we can teach them the technical stuff. So therefore, the soft skills is what trumps his interview there, or trumps the other candidate, right? So yeah, that's pretty neat.
Yeah, one take that I like about what you said, Tim, was you've got to think about it from the standpoint of, is this somebody that I can work with on a daily basis? And is this somebody who's going to be able to play well with others to be able to contribute to the business? So yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, I know from personal experience when we were doing our interviews through Network Engineers, I pretty much passed on a person because I thought they were grumpy in the interview, and I was like, and that's exactly what I went back to. I was like, do I think they could do the job technically? I thought they could do the job technically, but just the way that their demeanor was, and I don't know, it just I was like, do I want that on my team though? And do I want to work with this every day? And I didn't, and so I passed on them.
Am I going to be able to say howdy to this guy every day?
Yeah, exactly. Is he going to say howdy back to me?
I mean, we at my old job as an enterprise engineer, we interviewed someone exactly in that situation where the guy was surly. He was just generally, like you'd ask him like some softball, not even a technical question, like what do you do for fun or something, and his answer was like stuff. Like in an interview, like we were trying to like interview this dude. He was terrible.
Stuff and things.
He had a CCIE. he had a CCIE, but he was like really, really surly and grumpy and just non-social in any way. And we told, and they were like, "Hey, what's your feedback?" And we were like, "No." And then we got overridden by someone who was like, oh, but we can get a CCIE in here for cheap. And I'm thinking like, well, there's a reason you're getting him for cheap. But point is, the guy, he was not a team player in any way. He was regularly butted heads with everybody, myself included. I mean, like really bad. Like I'm trying to think, I want to give a very specific example without like running out the clock here. But, you know, just as an example, this is a guy where we took the technical over the personality, and we were talking about ACS or something, and it was my first exposure to ACS, and I was saying, hey, I think, you know, we need to, there's a button at the bottom of all of your rules, and if you check the box, it says basically default allow if nothing else matches, right? And we were having troubleshooting VPN problems or whatever, and he was over my shoulder watching me troubleshoot. And I was like, oh, I didn't know like this box was here, and I didn't know how to do this. And he's like, you can make it do whatever you want. You can make it say Tim is a dumbass if you want. I had just met this guy.
Oh wow!
Like within that was the first week he was working. Like that was the first week he was working, and I'd probably said like 20 words to the guy in the meantime between that and him saying this to me. And I pushed away from the keyboard, and I got up and I left. And I had to walk away for a minute, right?
Right.
That's what I'm talking about. When that's like the perfect poster child for what I'm talking about. So anyway, yeah.
which is another soft skill, right? Knowing when you need to take a break and need to decompress for a second without saying things that you may really want to say right in that moment.
Yeah, how to handle tough situations and whatnot. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I got a quick question for the team then. Is soft skills something that can be taught or not?
Wait, which Tim?
For everybody, you know, whoever's got.
Oh, for everybody in this stuff.
So are you asking if soft skills can be taught?
Yeah, right. Like, can you take that surly engineer and then, you know, provide them the feedback, the training, whatever, to make them into, you know, somebody that has the best of both worlds, right?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think that, you know, maybe a manager could have stepped in on something like that if a manager even saw that interaction and be like, look, you know, how do you think that makes him feel? You know, how do you think that makes Tim feel? And maybe someone can learn from that, right? I don't think just because, you know, you're an a-hole, like in that scenario, doesn't mean you can't come back from that.
Sure.
I definitely think it's a dent in your record, right? You know, but maybe he doesn't.
I think you gotta want to.
Yeah, definitely.
I was just gonna say that. I think it depends on the person, and just like technical skills, I think soft skills are the same. You have to have the will to learn that. I think somebody can just be sharp as a tack technically, but they have no desire to be personable. Now they can learn that and they can know how to be personable, but if they don't want to, they don't want to.
Right.
Yeah.
So what do? Just get rid of them? Like get them off the team, that kind of thing?
I think it's like any skill, right? Like if you kept crashing the network every Tuesday, right? You would obviously take steps to rectify that, you know, professionally as part of the process, right? If somebody just is not getting along with the team and everybody and just is not making the effort, I think I would treat that failure as any other failure that you'd expect management to deal with, right?
Right. Exactly.
Well, does anybody else have anything to kind of tie this off? Any last thoughts around soft skills? What's our new name? Rubber skills?
Rubber skills?
Semi-tough skills? I don't know. I don't like the word. I don't like the phrase.
Yeah.
I like socials. I've always just liked calling them social skills.
Yeah,
personally.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
That's a lot better than soft skills.
But I think there are some other soft skills that might not, you know, go with social exactly. Like I think
that's fair.
Isn't like creative thinking, isn't that kind of considered a soft skill?
I don't know what that is, Dan.
Creative thinking?
What is?
I don't know what creative thinking is.
I don't know how to be creative.
Thinking outside of the box. Have you ever heard that expression?
What's thinking?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't do it too often, so.
No, that's a fair point, Dan. I think you're right. I'm sure there are other skills that are not social, so maybe social is not It's the one I think of, but I'm sure you're right. There probably are soft skills.
I think those are kind of like the major ones, right? And so definitely social skills in that sense is because everything we pretty much talked about tonight is a social skill, right? So that's fair. Maybe we should have a soft skill 2.0 episode where we talk about things that aren't as social.
I think we will.
Yeah.
I think we will.
Yeah.
Because
I think there's more to dive into here.
Yeah, for sure.
A lot of meat on this bone.
Say what now?
A lot of meat on this bone.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, Dan, AJ, do we have any podcast updates? Anything new that you want to share coming down?
Well, we announced we have a sponsor. Dan is sporting their polo this evening, Open Gear. After I return from travel, we will be connecting with them and recording their episode. So super excited to get their message out to you. They are looking very much to help out the community in many ways. So we're going to do some giveaways. You can expect to see that coming. So yeah, lots of fun stuff coming.
For sure.
Excellent. Any last thoughts there, Tim?
No, not really. I'm usually pretty. No, I don't have anything to add. I think what AJ said earlier is correct. We got a lot of meat left on this bone. There's definitely some circle back for some of the other soft skills or whatever you would call them, I guess.
Awesome. Well, Tim, thank you for joining us tonight. AJ, you want to take us out?
See ya.
Hey everyone, this is AJ. If you like what you heard today, then make sure you subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcatcher. Smash that bell icon to get notified of all of our future episodes. Also, follow us on Twitter and Instagram. We are at Art of NetEng. That's Art of NETENG. You can also find us on the web at artofnetworkengineering.com, where we post all of our show notes. You can read blog articles from the co-hosts and guests, and also a lot more news and info from the networking world. Thanks for listening.